White House, reporting live. Maybe he has some insight into what we can expect just about an hour from now. Hi, Edward.
Hey, it's going to be an important hour. We do not know who that special guest is. I can tell you that President Donald Trump, though, is going to meet with the Japanese trade delegation here. Now, the trade delegation is here again from Japan to try and negotiate lowering those reciprocal tariffs. Now, the White House U.S. trade representative, as well as the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, have both said that President Donald Trump would come in at the end of the process to make final decisions. The White House Economic Advisor Stephen Murren also mentioned Vietnam, India, Israel, and the United Kingdom and Australia as being close to deals. He adds the door is open to every country for a deal.
And you have to hand it to the president and the team for creating the leverage to bring other countries to the negotiating table. Over 130 countries have come knocking on the door saying, we want to talk about a deal. There's 10 very serious offers on the table that the team is looking at. And I think the Chinese have to understand that a deal will be better for them as well. They just have to sort of, come to the table and want to make it.
President Trump conscious that the markets, as well as some Americans, uneasy during this process of getting trade agreements the administration wants. The effect of the deals could isolate China, which is why you saw President Xi's first trip out of China this year to Vietnam, as well as China using its nuclear option, so to speak, when it comes to global pushback, pausing shipments of some rare earth minerals.
Rare earths are one of those ubiquitous minerals that are everywhere in every economy. And if we don't have access to these minerals, we're going to have some very serious economic issues worldwide, not just in the United States.
And last night, the president launching an investigation into the national security risks of the U.S. dependent on other countries for those rare earth minerals. China dominates the market in that, so further targeting that country. Back to you.
Mr. Trizzle Dizzle, I thought I told you to pay me $500 million. Did you bring that money today?
No.
Well, that's too bad. I need my money, sucker. So what I'm going to do is take all your properties in New York and start selling. What the? Did you just flip me off?
No.
Yes, you did. You just flipped me the bird. If you don't shape up and get your head straight. See there, you just did it again.
No, I didn't.
Hey everybody, it's ALX in for Benny. Benny is actually with his family right now, taking his kids to see Angel Studios' new movie, King of Kings. That's the trailer you could see on the screen right now. So that's a great movie to go check out for Holy Week. It's about the life of Christ, and it's setting records right now in the theaters. So Benny's out with his family doing that. And yeah, so we're live right now awaiting the press conference with Carolyn Levitt. They just announced this. It was not on the schedule. And she announced, if you could put up the post, there we go, that there's a special guest going to be at this briefing as well. So there's a lot of different speculation going on, whether it's going to be a serious guest, like perhaps President Trump announcing a trade deal with Japan, because he's meeting with representatives from Japan right now, to anywhere between that and maybe even somebody like the Easter Bunny, which was my first guest. But we will have to see in a couple minutes who comes out with Carolyn Levitt. Yeah, Fox News was just on speculating as well, if we want to play that clip.
Looking at the White House briefing room, we know that this afternoon the president was speaking with representatives from Japan and his Treasury Secretary and Commerce Secretary. And then we were told there would be a special announcement and a special guest at the White House briefing podium there in the press room in a couple of minutes. So stay tuned for that. Senior national correspondent Rich Edson is ready and waiting on the North Lawn. Hi, Rich.
Hey, good afternoon, Martha. It was a pretty light day on the public schedule here at the White House. And then all of a sudden, this briefing pops up and we see a special guest is going to be in the briefing room. So the speculation in there is everything from we'll see President Trump to maybe even the Easter Bunny. Unclear exactly what we're going to learn, but there are those trade discussions ongoing. The big events here at the White House today with the Japanese delegation. They try to figure out a way out of some of these tariffs. Meanwhile, out in Chicago, the Fed chairman warning of inflation end tariffs. So economy very much top of mind here. You also have the Trump administration with the combative front towards a number of federal judges when it comes to the way that they're executing their immigration and deportation plans. Though that back and forth is something the White House hasn't been shy about. So we'll see specifically what they're looking to announce and talk about who that special guest is less than 45 minutes.
All right, so stay tuned, everybody. It's either going to be President Trump or maybe the Easter Bunny, or maybe both. Who knows? Thank you, Rich. So the Trump.
Yeah, so Fox kind of has the same guess as my initial reaction when I saw the news. So I haven't heard any internal leaks. I've been looking online to see if anybody who's actually at the White House has leaked anything out. I haven't seen anything. But the way that they're framing it by saying there's a special announcement makes me seem like it's something, even if it is something like the Easter Bunny or whatever, that there actual be some substance and some announcement that comes along with it. Yeah, so it could be like a trade deal, which would send probably the markets flying after hours. And I know earlier there was some reporting saying that one of the things that they're trying to do is get a bunch of our countries to sign a deal to take the tariffs off their country in exchange for them locking China out of their trade. And that's kind of been the goal, it seems, is to, make like us less reliant on China and other countries less reliant on China because they have the edge in a lot of areas, especially like the new emerging AI, and we just saw NVIDIA commit to, building all of the supercomputers and chips here. So stuff like that is going to be very important moving on, into the next couple of years. So that's what we're kind of speculating the deal might be on. And Japan, as we know, that would be a big deal to have someone as strong as Japan, an ally in the Asian region, to combat China. So yesterday, Carolyn Levitt kind of teased a deal as well. So she said that at least 15 countries have agreed to terms or some terms for a deal, but 75 countries have reached out. So let's listen to what she said yesterday.
And Secretary of Commerce, the Secretary of Treasury, all the great individuals who are working incredibly hard to cut these good trade deals. And the president's deeply involved in this as well. He has made it clear to his trade team he wants to personally sign off on all of these deals too. And so I don't want to get ahead of them on announcements, but obviously, as you've heard from numerous administration officials, there have been many talks with countries. We've had more than 15 deals, pieces of paper put on the table, proposals that are actively being considered. And as we've said consistently, more than 75 countries have reached out. So there's a lot of work to do. We very much understand that, but we do believe that we can announce some deals very soon.
Yeah, so as you heard there, there's 75 countries that are in discussions and have reached out, and then as she said, 15 have already had pieces of paper sent and deals on paper. So having Japan actually in the White House today, and then so if you looked at the public schedule this morning, there wasn't a whole lot on there. But it was known that Trump was going to be having closed door meetings with representatives from Japan, and then this announcement kind of came midday. So if you kind of put two and two together there, that could come as a positive development out of the meeting that has been ongoing since this morning. So that's kind of another indication that it might be a more serious guest or announcement, that it came later in the day. Whereas if it was something like the Easter Bunny, that might have been something just on the schedule as well. Because if you look later in the day, there is some Easter events and religious events. I think it's a dinner at like 6:30, so it could go either way kind of there. But the other indication there is that if it was something like the Easter Bunny and nothing else, like that might have been more likely to be pre-scheduled. But there has been a lot of talk in the media about how tariffs are causing people to regret their vote against President Trump. and I've seen a lot like online from some of our left-wing influencer friends posting screenshots of like anonymous accounts saying, "Oh, I voted for Trump and now I regret my vote," and it's like some account with like 5 followers. So yesterday on CNN, Harry Enton, who is a pollster there and who reads kind of the polls, kind of put some cold water on that narrative with new polls showing that Trump actually has gained support after the tariff announcements. Let's play that clip.
Let's talk about Trump voters and how they feel. Do they regret their vote?
I mean, this is the big question, right? I hear all these stories, all these articles. All the Trump voters, they regret what they did back in 2024. I'm here to tell you, very few of them regret what they did back in 2024. What are we talking about? Trump voters looking back at 2024. We got a new poll out. The poll was conducted this month. What percentage would change their vote to a different candidate? We're talking just 2%, just 2%. That's not even a wide spot on the road. And then there's this additional 1% who say they would rather not vote. We're talking overall under 5% might or would have changed their vote, Donald Trump voters back in 2024. And then you ask, okay, the same question of Kamala Harris voters, and it turns out the numbers are rather similar. So if there was a repeat, if folks got to be able to redo their vote that they had back in 2024, would the result be any different? I doubt it would be. I doubt it would be, or it would still be extremely close. The bottom line is, for all this talk of Trump voters regretting their vote, in the numbers, it really just doesn't show up, John.
So the stickiness with Trump voters and President Trump in this presidency, how does it compare to his first presidency?
Yeah, okay. So, I was interested in sort of a historical analogy here, sort of, does this look similar or different from back in 2017, looking at 2016? Well, in February of 2017, 4% of Trump voters say they'd shift their vote. That's actually slightly more than the 3% this time around. So, you look back, you say, okay, there's these Trump voters who really regret their vote. Historically speaking, they really don't regret their vote. And if anything, the number this time around is actually smaller than it was the first time around. And it's certainly smaller than the number we saw coming out of 2020, of course, after the events of January 6th. So the bottom line is this. If there's some idea out there that Trump voters are going around, man, I wish I had voted for Kamala Harris instead of Donald Trump, the numbers say that is a fanciful universe. It really, for the most part, does not exist.
What about the...
Yeah, so as you heard there, there's no indication that there is any waning of support for President Trump. And one of the other things, too, that they tried to do during the campaign is obviously lawfare against Donald Trump. We had, the case in Georgia. We have, the case in New York. And then, they tried to assassinate the guy. And then what we saw break late last night actually is one of the proponents of lawfare against Donald Trump, Letitia James, the attorney general in New York, is actually being hit with some new allegations that are quite similar to the allegations she's leveled against Donald Trump in her case, except in this instance, it's actually on paper, and her name is signed in her own signature, listing the properties that in Virginia as her main property when she's an elected official in New York. And then also she lied about the amount of rooms in another property, and also listed her father as her spouse. So there is quite a few things that she has to be concerned about. Looks like we're getting some movement at the White House door. I can't really see who these people are, but yeah, it looks like we might be. Is that Chris Bedford? Can't really tell. Okay. Oh, yeah, it looks like Chris Bedford is the new media seat today. So it looks like Carolyn Leavitt might be coming out imminently. But yeah, until then, let's listen to the breaking news from last night about Letitia James and the allegations she's facing.
Now the Trump Justice Department may be a pain in her you-know-what. The Angle has obtained shocking allegations leveled by the Trump administration against New York Attorney General Letitia James. The Federal Housing Finance Agency has sent a criminal referral to the DOJ accusing James of mortgage fraud. In a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Director Bill Pulte says James appears to have falsified records in order to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. He cited a property in Virginia that she's allegedly claimed as her principal residence and a property in New York that she claimed as a 4-unit structure instead of the required, instead of a 5, which Pulte says means she was able to get a different type and more favorable loan. Joining me.
Yeah, so as you heard there, it seems like she's in some hot water. And it's just poetic justice, the fact that, she repeated over and over, nobody is above the law. Most recently, she was taunting Elon Musk, saying that the Treasury and Elon Musk and Donald Trump are not above the law. And there's multiple instances on her X feed of her taunting Trump, saying nobody's above the law, and no matter what position you hold, you should be held accountable just like everybody else. And not only that, but the same allegations that she's leveled against Donald Trump, it seems that she's guilty of herself. And then not only is, in Trump's instance, it was, not true, but in her instance, you can't even debate it because she's listed it herself on pieces of paper and signed her name. And, this was clearly her intent. So we'll see how that plays out. Did I hear that right? That we have a 2-minute warning on Carolyn Levitt, or how are we looking on that? I see. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, 2 minutes. So we'll see. Possibly Carolyn Levitt's doing her prayer before going out to the podium with our new special guest. So we'll see how that goes in just a moment. It seems. If it is the Easter Bunny, though. We do have some clips of the last time the Easter Bunny came to the White House. And it seems to take control of Joe Biden, if we want to put that up. So Joe Biden wasn't allowed to talk to the press. So we had to send the Easter Bunny out to go and redirect him so he wouldn't get himself in any trouble. Do we want to play the other one too? Boy, so confused.
Pakistan should not, and Afghanistan should be people.
Oh, the Easter Bunny, Mr. President.
Look at his face. He was just like, yeah, they totally didn't want him. It was totally like a rain order from the White House, and they totally didn't want him talking to the press. I doubt that's going to be the case this time. If the Easter Bunny's here, the Easter Bunny won't be in control of any White House officials, and certainly not in control of Trump. So we won't have to worry about that. But yeah, still not seeing much movement from the door. So let's, here we go.
President Trump campaigned on the promise to secure our homeland and deport violent alien criminals from our communities. That is why the American people overwhelmingly reelected him back. And it's why the American people homeland and deport violent alien criminals from our communities. That is why the American people overwhelmingly reelected him back to this office. And it's why the American people defeated the Democrat Party in devastating fashion. Today, we have officially learned Democrat officials still refuse to accept the will of the American people. Maryland Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen rushed to Dulles Airport this morning to fly to El Salvador, potentially using taxpayer dollars to demand the release of deported illegal alien MS-13 terrorists. The Democrats and the media in this room have continually and wrongly labeled Kilmar Abrego Garcia as a Maryland father. There is no Maryland father. Let me reiterate. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is an illegal alien, MS-13 gang member and foreign terrorist who was deported back to his home country. And when Kilmar Abrego Garcia was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money covering the ears, mouth, and eyes of presidents on various currency denominations. This is a known MS-13 gang symbol of hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. Abrego Garcia was also arrested with 2 other well-known members of the vicious MS-13 gang. And 2 separate judges found that Abrego Garcia was a member of MS-13, and that finding has never been disputed. And just this morning, it was revealed through Maryland court documents that Abrego Garcia's wife petitioned for an order of protection against him for 2 instances of domestic violence in May of 2021. And here is the order right here. The court ordered that the respondent committed the following acts of abuse. Once in May of 2021, assault in any degree. And on May 4th of 2021, he punched and scratched his wife, ripped off her shirt, and grabbed and bruised her. This is from a court in Maryland. So not only are Democrats rushing to defend an illegal criminal foreign terrorist gang member, but also an apparent woman beater. To set all of that aside, the basic fact that he was illegally inside our country and had a lawful deportation order made him subject to removal back to his home country of El Salvador. And if he ever ends up back in the United States, he would immediately be deported again. Nothing will change the fact that Abrego Garcia will never be a Maryland father. He will never live in the United States of America again. And the United States Supreme Court ruled unanimously that the President of the United States and the Secretary of State could not be compelled to forcibly retrieve this citizen of El Salvador who is currently locked up in a maximum security prison in his home country due to his MS-13 membership. To remind the media and the Democrat Party, MS-13 are among the most vicious and dangerous individuals in this world. They pose a direct threat to the United States, El Salvador, and any other country who maintains basic law and order. MS-13 rapes innocent girls and women, runs sex trafficking operations, murders for sport, and terrorizes law-abiding people. That's why El Salvador President Bukele made it clear this week that he will not be releasing this MS-13 gang member from his prison. But that is not enough. All of that is not enough to stop the Democrat Party from their lies. The number one issue they are focused on right now is bringing back this illegal alien terrorist to America. But where are the Democrats applauding the fact that southern border crossings just hit a historic low? Where are the Democrats supporting our brave men and women of law enforcement who are putting their lives on the line every single day to arrest the violent illegal alien invaders that the previous administration allowed into our country? And where are the Democrats when innocent Americans are victimized by illegal criminals that Joe Biden let in? It's appalling and sad that Senator Van Hollen and the Democrats applauding his trip to El Salvador today are incapable of having any shred of common sense or empathy for their own constituents and our citizens. Nobody knows this more than the woman standing to my right, Patty Morin, whose beautiful daughter Rachel was brutally maimed and murdered at the hands of an illegal alien in August of 2023. Patty no longer has her daughter because of the failed Democrat Party's open border, and these are policies that President Trump is bringing an end to. Patty should not have to be here today, but she is. And we are grateful and we are honored for her willingness and her request to share her powerful story with the world. Thank you, Patty, for being here.
Thank you. A lot of you don't know the whole story about Rachel and about the crime that was committed against her. Even us, her family, we didn't know all the details. They kept most of it close to their chest, the detectives, because they didn't want to do anything to hurt the case. They wanted to keep the integrity of the case, so they kept everything close. I sat for the last 2 weeks in her trial, and we saw layer upon layer upon layer of evidence against the accused, an illegal immigrant from El Salvador. And the things that we thought, well, maybe this might have happened, we didn't know. But when we were at the trial, we got all the puzzle pieces. And I want to share some of those things with you. You know that Rachel's a 37-year-old mother. She has 5 children. We've walked the trail for the last 25 years that we've lived in Maryland. It's a safe place for our family. It's where we go to get a little bit of New England, because that's where we're from, New England. When she went on that trail that day, she was not planning on dying. She wasn't planning on walking to her death. She was planning on going to the grocery store with her girls afterwards. Victor Martinez, he waited for her. He waited for her to come closer. He saw her. He saw that there was nobody around. He attacked her. He dragged her 150 feet, blood gushing from her head. It left a 150-foot trail of her blood to the culverts, where he picked her up, he threw her against the wall of the tunnel, and he raped her. But before he did that, he stopped on that trail, and rocks, still stained with her blood, he used them to hammer her head against those rocks. They say at least 20 times they could count the cuts in her head. They said that when they did the autopsy, and I've seen the pictures, there's a 6-inch square in the back of her head where the skull is shattered the way that you would crush an eggshell in pieces. 3/4 of her brain hemorrhaged. Her right and left side of her face bashed in. Her beautiful face bashed in. Her head bashed in. Broken bones, fractures. He takes and he drags her some more. He drags her through the thorn bushes. She has all the scrapes and cuts on her body. There wasn't 1 inch of her body that didn't have some kind of injury, whether it's bruising, broken bones, contusions, the scratches. She had a fractured rib, fractured nose, fractured skull. And then he takes her into the tunnel and he picks her up. He throws her against the wall. Blood is gushing from her head. Her hair is soaked in blood. And they showed us pictures of her body against the wall, outlined. The blood outlined her body. And you could see where the blood ran down around her as he was raping her. And then he threw her down and raped her some more. And then he strangled her because he didn't want her to be able to live to tell the story. They said that when they did the autopsy on her neck, that one of the things they do is they open up the neck and they look to see how far the injury is. And it went all the way down as far as an injury is possible, hemorrhaging in the muscles because of how strong and violent the group was around her. These are the kind of people that have no compulsion. Like, to them, this is nothing. And when he was sitting in the courtroom, he actually looked like he thought he was going to be set free. There was no remorse on his face at all. This person took my daughter so violently and so gruesomely and so graphically that they sealed the pictures, because I don't want my granddaughters to see these pictures. These are the kind of criminals President Trump wants to remove from our country. These are the kind of criminals that we need to remove from our country. We are American citizens. Why should we allow people like this, violent criminals that have no conscience at all, to murder our mothers, our sisters, our daughters? What? I don't understand why there's even any kind of problem with this. And it's not that it's political, like the left or the right, although I understand different parties have used it in the past. But we have to look at it as we are American citizens. We need to protect our families, our borders, our children. I don't care about politics. Well, I do, but I want to preserve life. And that's the only reason why I have taken and spoken about Rachel all this time. If you're a mother here in the room, can you imagine standing there alive? You're alive, and someone comes and puts their hands into your chest and rips out your heart. That's what it feels like. It feels like a part of you is being ripped out of you. You can't even describe the pain. Just like you can't describe to your husband what it feels like to carry a baby in your womb, or to feel those first kicks, or to know just intuitively if it's a boy or a girl. It's only a thing that a mother knows. Why are we not protecting the American citizens? It's just common sense. Why are we not protecting our children? And to have a senator from Maryland who didn't even acknowledge or barely acknowledge my daughter and the brutal death that she endured, leaving her 5 children without a mother and now a grandbaby without a grandmother, so that he can use my taxpayer money to fly to El Salvador to bring back someone that's not even an American citizen. Why does that person have more right than I do, or my daughter, or my grandchildren? I don't understand this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I just want to say that as a mother and as an American citizen, the president and our entire team, and I hope people in this room are grateful for your willingness to come here and your request to share your daughter's story. And I think the country hears you loud and clear. So thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Patty or for me? No? I have a question. No? Anybody? Okay. We'll see you all later. The president will be at his dinner later this evening. Thank you for being here this morning. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Please.
Simmer down now.
Excuse me?
Everybody want to return something, so just simmer down now.
I wasn't even getting excited.
Simmer down now. Get the stuff in now, you hear? Get. Okay, everybody simmer down now, one at a time. Give it here.
Okay.
Give it here.
Okay.
Slow it down now, simmer down.
Stop telling us to simmer down.
Slow it down now.
Mr. Trizzle Dizzle, I thought I told you to pay me $500 million. Did you bring that money today?
No.
Well, that's too bad. I need my money, sucker. So what I'm going to do is take all your properties in New York and start selling. What the? Did you just flip me off?
No.
Yes, you did. You just flipped me the bird. If you don't shape up and get your head straight. See there, you just did it again.
No, I didn't.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings. And their dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the Benny Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. Show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for #1. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings.